Okay, so now that we have learned some things about, how to use Boolean conditions and check things with if statements and stuff like that, we're going to try to apply it to some of these problems. So let's look at area of a regular octagon together. So we're saying here that the area of a regular octagon having side length A is found by this formula. And we're going to write a program that calculates and displays the area of a regular octagon by accepting the side length as input from the user. And then we're also saying that the program must display an error message if the length entered is negative. Alright, so let's go over to Eclipse. And we're still in math and logic here, so I'm going to make a new class called area of regular octagon, or just area of octagon. Alright, so just to kind of shorten that up, and then finish. Okay. So then inside of here we're going to say that we want to use a scanner. So that's going to be our number reader. Alright. And then we're going to prompt for the side length, right? So we're going to say enter the side length. And that could be a decimal value. It doesn't say that it has to be a whole number. So we're going to go ahead and use a double and call it little a. That's what it's called in the formula. And we're going to go ahead and say that that is going to come from our number reader dot next double. Okay, now for me, as soon as I do that, right, it recognizes that next double is something that comes from the scanner class that's in the util package, so it automatically imported scanner for me. Okay, if it didn't do that for you, then you know that you can import scanner on your own. Okay, so now what do we want to do? Well, there's a chance that somebody using this program, after I say enter the side length, that they're going to screw up and enter a negative number. And so we want to check to see if they did that. And if they did, then we're going to go ahead and give them an error message. Okay? So there's a couple different ways of kind of checking, of kind of thinking about this. One is to think so how do I know that a number is negative? Using like a less than or greater than. How do I know that a number is negative? When it's less than 0, okay? So if a is less than 0, then we have some kind of error message. Okay? Else, do some calculation. Does that make sense? All right. The other way of doing this is to say, well, what if the opposite of this is true? What if it's like a is greater than or equal to 0? Well, then that's when I want to do some calculation, right? And when it's not greater than or equal to 0, that's when I want to do the error. Okay? So you can think about it either way. Some people like to think about it this way because it's like almost, I don't know, more optimistic to say like, well, if you did the right thing, then we're going to do some calculation. But if you didn't, then I'm going to show you the error. Okay? So let's just kind of do it that way. So this calculation, right, comes from this formula right here. Okay? So if the area, if a is a positive value, then we can find the area using this formula. All right? And let me get back to there. Since I'm going to have more than one step in there, like I'm going to say something like, the area is this formula, and then I'm going to output it, then I need brackets for this if, so that I can do more than one thing inside of there. Does that make sense? So then we'll go ahead and put double, I'll just put area equals, and then we can kind of flip back and forth here, but I believe that the area was like 2 times, what is it, 1 plus the square root of a, or no, 1 plus the square root of 2, and I think then that was times a. Okay, let's just check back to make sure that that's right. 2 times 1 plus the square root of 2 times a squared. Okay, so a squared could be a times a, or if you're feeling like you just really love math methods, then you could do math.pow and do a and 2. So that's a squared. Alright, so I'm just going to close this so we can see the whole line of code there. So that's one way that you could find the area. Alright. And then after we find the area, we want to tell the user what the area is. So we're going to go print line the area of the octagon is, and then tack on the area. Okay? And then we still want to fill in this else to say, well, if you entered a number that was not greater than or equal to 0, then it must have been negative, and we want to give you an error message there to say something like, you cannot enter a negative side length. Okay? So since there's only one thing that we want to do with this else, we don't need brackets in that case. Alright? Since there was two things that we wanted to do up here, we did need brackets for the if. Okay? So if we run that, enter the side length, let's say it's -5. It says you cannot enter a negative side length. If we run it again, okay, let's say the side length was 10. The area of the octagon is 482 point whatever. I guess we could say like units squared if you wanted to get really fancy. And then something that I've been neglecting recently is remembering to close this number reader, close the scanner after you're done using it. So we want to go number reader dot close after we're done reading input from the user. So it doesn't matter if you do it, really right here, or if you do it at the end of the main method or whatever method you're using that scanner inside of, just as long as it does get closed. We've been neglecting to do that in the past, so just want to remember that.